that you should look at. And I think this is what happens and what develops, because there are a lot of questions and not a lot of answers when we're not a part of the process. And so I think from that perspective, I think that that's where we find ourselves. What I'd not like to do is go through an analysis of the Children's Trust in great detail in terms of what it is or what it isn't or what it should be, or all of those kinds of items, because I think that, again, this seems to me to be something that we need to take up in a much larger context as a part of a work session for this council to talk about. So from that perspective, after we already had a recommendation that came before us that did not receive a second, my suggestion to folks would be that we dispense and move on with some of the other items, and unless there is something pertinent that you must say, and I would ask that you limit it, because we do have other budgetary items that we do need to get to as a part of this, where we will be making decisions and recommendations.
Okay, well, Mr. Council President, if I could just reclaim my time for a second.
Absolutely.
I raised some of my reactions to this. I know the superintendent was inclined to respond. I'm happy to defer to you on this management issue. I will simply say that I've asked that we pull off the DED budget from the consent calendar tomorrow, so I can share with you in more detail some clarifications to what is in the staff memo that we have in front of us with respect to what the Fed committee did.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Elrich?
Sure, go ahead.
Councilmember Branson, I'm sorry. Her number got bumped.
Thank you. You know, I find myself once again apologizing to Uma because once again you find yourself in a position, I believe, this is totally my interpretation of your position, of defending something that you really want, you really believe in, you think it's a great idea, but, and we're stuck at the but. The problem, I don't think anybody can doubt that this is a worthy goal, that the Children's Trust is an incredibly exciting idea. It's a worthy goal. I wish I could have seconded Councilmember Reamer's motion. I just couldn't. And the reason I couldn't is because I don't see the buy-in. I don't see the buy-in from Montgomery County Public Schools. And that is incredibly disturbing. When we had Dr. Pollard here, not today, but some time back, we talked about the achievement gap, and her response was, I will own it, and I will try to fix it. She wants to own it. And therein lies the difference. The notion, the difference between a willingness to accept responsibility and the willingness to disperse it. Because I don't see this buy-in, I could not second Councilmember Reamer's motion. I really wanted to, because I really believe this could be a worthwhile program. And I just, I want this owned because I want this fixed. Thank you.
Councilmember Elrich.
So this is a really agonizing discussion. And I guess I have various views on the pieces of this. If I gave you $50,000 or $100,000, there's no plan for where that's going to go. Well, it's not going to deliver any services, and if it's a down payment on a trust, in the hope that it brings another matching money, that's like a Hail Mary pass. And is a symbolic gesture to say, we've put up 100, somebody else put up 100. If it's not for that, I don't get what it's for. I don't see where this $100,000 is going to deliver any services. And one of my colleagues made the comment about we must do this we must attack the social determinants in a million different ways in this county. We probably do attack them in a million different ways. We just don't have the resources to attack them at the scale of the need. I mean, I've asked this question since I've been on the council. Tell me what the focus population is, and look at what percentage of it that we serve. We don't serve hardly the number of kids that need support, or the number of families that need support. And that's not because anybody doesn't want to do it. It's just, I think, a stark reality of the money that we've been dealing with up here. And frankly, nobody's come to us and said, if you really tried to meet all these needs, this is what it would cost. So we don't know what it would take. We do know that what we're doing now doesn't get us where we want to be. But I don't see this today taking us there if I give you money. But on the other hand, I think it's wrong to say that there shouldn't be this kind of effort. I would have felt much better, frankly, not if Dr. Starr had put $50,000 on the table or whatever, because basically, A, that's our money. We'd appropriate it, and they would simply just target it for this. Or if he had been really clever, he would have taken one of his existing programs and said, this is our match, changed the name so we didn't realize it was an existing program, and then they'd be in and we'd say, would that make us any happier? I guess what I would like is, we've talked, Craig has scheduled a meeting for the 16th, right? And Nancy talked about something in the fall where we have a real thorough stakeholders discussion of this. Because I agree with everybody who said this is not a school problem is dead right. You cannot fix this in the schools. If you put the closing the achievement gap on the schools alone, it's not going anywhere. They cannot fix this there. This is a complex problem. And no matter how good the teacher is, they cannot achieve universal success for everybody just by what you do in a classroom. But I would like to see this come back, and the partner that's missing in my mind is any private sector entity that you would hope would be matching this. If you had come here and saying, we're going to create a foundation to address that's going to raise money that will then use to target programs in the school, and it's got to be a lot of money, by the way, because even if you had $1 million and you got lucky and got 10% interest a year, that's $100,000, and I can't tell you how little $100,000 matters in the scheme of things. So there's a part of me thinking you'd have to be talking about way, way more money than anybody's imagined. But if you were sitting here with private partners saying, we want to create this and we're going to work with the school system and the county to do that, I would feel much more warmly about this proposal. And I don't want you to go away. Like I said, I'm going to have a hard time voting for $100,000. I don't want people to go away and say, oh, well, we're not interested. I'm really interested, but I would like to see you back with some partners. I'd like to see us have this discussion in the fall when we have this larger meeting to talk about it. And maybe our mission ought to be between now and then to create that entity, to get enough people engaged in the broad spectrum of the county to say, we are going to play in this field, we're going to get involved, we're going to help you fund it, and we're going to actually do things. But I think, I don't think it's negative what you all are trying to do. I don't think it's ready for prime time. But I think it's the right thing to do. And I think most of my colleagues realize that we're going to have to attack this on multiple fronts and not on the school front. So I don't bemoan the fact that this is, it's been cited as it's a school problem. I think you guys own it. I don't think you are any better equipped to deal with it, frankly, than we are, because you've got X amount of resources. Your classrooms are full. 90% of your payroll is teachers. There's not a lot of stuff lying around that you can move and do other things with. So we all know we need to do something, but in the context of our limits, we're not doing it. So I think the challenge in the fall discussion is, what are we willing to do that will actually change the game? And it's got to be more than $100,000. Don't measure us by that or feel like we're being, miserly. You couldn't convince me that you've got a plan that's going to make a difference with that.
Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you. I wanted to also just explain why I didn't support it either. Most certainly, there's been plenty of, obviously, studies and conversations around the country trying to understand and figure out some of these issues. And one of the pieces that has been most important has been this conversation about early childhood as the place where you can best intervene and affect the issue of the academic achievement gap. And so, people disagree about where to invest, but there's no question that if you do that, hopefully you'll be able to tackle what is coming next. And when I first brought this up, and as a matter of fact, Kate Garvey and Janine Baki traveled to Miami for the White House Summit on Early Childhood Education, and I invited them precisely because Dade County has a children's trust of $100 million. It took them a decade to get to that point. But it seems to me that every time we look at best practices and programs, the big question is not what are the best practices. The question is how do you fund it? And so when you are faced with this example in Miami-Dade, in Dade County, Florida, where they have this trust, and they can then, from there, decide, okay, which are the best practices, the programs, the interventions that we can take into scale, and here we have a trust that we can, get to. Yes, it took them 10 years. Yes, it was linked to property taxes, and, this is going to be a long-term conversation. And so, I applaud the fact that this group came together and decided, and I remember, Gabe, when you approached me and said, oh, your idea of the trust, we're going to do something similar, we're starting. I applaud that. But I think it's true. I think that we need to have a bit more, some more robust conversations about where are we in 2014 in Montgomery County. I really do believe we need to push the pause button for a second here and then make a decision about where we're going to address this issue. Because right now it seems real piecemeal. And so I saw this and I thought, well, okay, it sounded really nice and everything, but that money's not going to do much. And unless we have a comprehensive conversation and we can agree, we're not going to get anywhere. And you know what? The first thing, and we said this morning, is reframing the issue and rebranding it. Because we keep talking about this issue as if it's only for certain kids. Newsflash, the certain kids are now becoming pretty much the bulk of our student population. These are our students. They are the clients. This is who they are. So the conversation has to pivot from, boutique programs and initiatives to a county-wide systematic approach of how we're going to address this issue of not just academic achievement, but well-being, right, for all these children and these families. Because if not, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to affect their quality of life no matter where you live in the county. And so that conversation we haven't had it yet. We've been doing it through piecemeal budget decisions and conversations and, tensions between who has what budget for whatever. That was the point of the Kennedy Cluster Project. It was let's practice cooperation and collaboration that is not based only on budgetary protection of my little pot, right? And so that is why I felt that, well, this is not ready. Let's come back. Let's have that comprehensive conversation that leads to some specific points of how we're going to proceed with our budgetary process and our policies going forward. This cannot be just an election year approach of, whoa, we proposed this children's trust and now we're, going to eliminate the achievement gap. That's not what this is about. And this is serious. This is really, really serious, and I laugh, and it's funny now. It wasn't funny to me when I first ran, but it's funny, when I get, little reporters from little newspapers tweeting things like, oh, it took Nancy Navarro only 90 seconds to talk about the children of color, as if it's supposed to be some, thing we shouldn't do. This is 2014 Montgomery County, and I am actually tired of having to dance around this issue time and time again. This is definitely an economic imperative. It's a social imperative. It's a national security imperative. And I'm tired of all the games that are being played. I've been at this for 10 years. And quite frankly, I'm not really clear where we're going with it. So I just think it's time to pause for a second after elections, whatever it is, and let's have a real positive conversation about how this links to our future and how we link it through our budgets. And let's just get it done because, quite frankly, it's just so frustrating. I can't even say it, in words. Thank you.